Another disaster they'll try to sweep under the rug, but the impact is impossible to hide. December 4th, 2025. Just after 7 in the morning on Interstate 5 near Lacey, Washington, a car hauler semi jackknives into the back of a school bus, triggering a 7-vehicle pileup. 4 people hospitalized. Lanes shut down for hours. And when Washington State Patrol arrests the driver, they discover something that should terrify every single person who shares the road with commercial trucks. This 40-year-old man had absolutely zero credentials to operate that vehicle. No CDL, no license from any jurisdiction, nothing. And yet somehow, someway, a California-based trucking company put him behind the wheel of an 80,000-pound truck. Let me say that again. A trucking company in California hired a driver with no commercial driver's license, no credentials whatsoever, and sent him out on America's highways. This isn't some isolated incident we can brush under the rug. This is the symptom of a disease that's been festering in our transportation industry for years, and it's finally metastasizing into something we can't ignore anymore. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy has been sounding the alarm about this exact problem, and now we're seeing why. He's talked about how certain states have been issuing commercial driver's licenses to foreign nationals who went through what he calls sham schools. These aren't legitimate training programs. They're diploma mills churning out paper CDLs for people who have no business operating commercial trucks. And the epicenter of this crisis? California. Duffy worked with other officials to get Governor Newsom to revoke 17,000 unlawfully issued licenses. Let that number sink in. 17,000. That's not a handful of mistakes. That's a systematic failure, or worse, systematic corruption. And they've shut down half of these fake schools. But clearly, half isn't enough because drivers like Hernandez Santos are still out there. The man arrested in this Washington crash is from Mexico, and according to every database check, he held no valid license from any jurisdiction, Mexican or American. So how does someone with absolutely no legal right to drive a commercial truck end up hauling cars on a major interstate during morning traffic? The answer is simple and infuriating. Trucking companies are exploiting cheap labor, and they don't care about the consequences. These companies know exactly what they're doing. They're hiring drivers they can pay poverty wages, drivers who won't complain about working conditions, drivers who won't report safety violations because they are afraid of deportation. It's a perfect storm of corporate greed, meeting desperate labor, and American families are the ones left picking up the pieces when it all goes sideways at 70 miles per hour. Let's talk about what actually happened on that highway. Traffic was slowing down on I-5. A school bus ahead of Santos began to brake. Basic driving, right? Something you learn in week 1 of legitimate truck driving school. But Santos was driving too fast for conditions and following too closely. When he hit the brakes, the physics of an overweight, poorly controlled semi took over. The truck jackknifed and slammed into the back of that school bus. Thank God there were no children on board, only the driver and one staff member, and they walked away. But imagine for 1 second if that bus had been full of kids on their way to school. Imagine if those 4 people hospitalized had died. This story could have been so much worse, and it's only luck that prevented it. 4 people went to the hospital with no life-threatening injuries. But let's be clear about what non-life-threatening means. It means their lives were disrupted, their bodies were damaged, their sense of safety was shattered, all because a trucking company decided that profit margins mattered more than public safety. Those 4 people and the 6 other vehicles involved in this crash are collateral damage in an industry that's racing to the bottom on standards. Santos was arrested at the scene and booked into Truston County Jail on gross misdemeanor charge of operating a commercial vehicle without a valid license. His bail was set at $1,000. $1,000. You can get charged more for a DUI. This man caused a multi-vehicle crash involving a school bus while operating a commercial vehicle with zero legal authority to do, and his bail is $1,000. If that doesn't tell you how seriously our legal system takes these violations, I don't know what will. And here's where it gets even more frustrating. Washington State Patrol confirmed Santos is from Mexico and has no valid license, but they also said they don't strictly record immigration status unless it's part of a specific criminal investigation. Washington is a sanctuary state, which means they're not cooperating with ICE on immigration enforcement. Now, I'm not here to debate the entire concept of sanctuary policies, but when it comes to commercial vehicle safety, we need to draw a line. Every state needs to be working with federal authorities to ensure that the people operating massive trucks on our highways are legally authorized to be here and legally authorized to drive. This isn't about politics. This is about physics. An unlicensed driver in a Toyota Camry is dangerous. An unlicensed driver in an 80,000-pound semi-truck is catastrophic. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is keeping the name of the trucking company quiet right now, and I understand why. They're investigating. They're probably raiding the company's offices as we speak, going through hiring records, safety logs, payroll documents. They want to build an airtight case before they go public. But a trucking company needs to be exposed. The public has a right to know which carriers are cutting corners like this. We have a right to know which companies are putting profits over people so we can avoid doing business with them, and so other trucking companies can see what happens when you play fast and lose with federal regulations. And let's be brutally honest about the economics here. American truck drivers have been getting squeezed for decades. The rates keep dropping, the costs keep rising, and legitimate drivers who went through real training and maintained their credentials are competing against people who are willing to work for pennies on the dollar because they're desperate. I understand that desperation. I get that Santos was probably just trying to feed his family. But understanding someone's motivation does not excuse the danger they create. And more importantly, it does not excuse the company that hired him knowingly full well he had no business behind that wheel. This is exactly what Secretary Duffy is talking about when he says we need to crack down on these operations. This is why the Department of Transportation is going hard after California. Because California has become ground zero for trucking companies that treat federal regulations like suggestions. They hire unlicensed drivers, they falsify logs, they skip maintenance, and they hope they can make enough money before someone gets killed and the authorities come knocking. Well, someone almost got killed in Washington and the authorities are knocking. The FMCSA needs to do more than just investigate this one company. They need to audit every single carrier that's hired drivers from these sham schools. They need to cross-reference every CDL issued in California over the past 5 years against federal databases and state records. They need to implement random roadside checks that verify not just that a driver has a license, but that the license was obtained legitimately. Because right now, we're playing whack-a-mole with a crisis that demands a systematic response. And to the trucking companies that are doing things the right way, this should make you furious. You're competing against companies that are cheating. You're paying American drivers fair wages while your competitors are exploiting illegal labor. You're maintaining your equipment and following regulations while other carriers are cutting every corner they can find. This is not a level playing field. And it won't be until the federal government comes down like a hammer on those operations that are breaking the rules. Trooper Cameron Watts, who responded to the scene, said, "The cause was speed too fast for conditions which led to loss of control and a jackknife. 6 additional cars involved plus a school bus, and we're lucky it was only minor injuries. But luck is not a safety plan. Luck runs out, and the next time an unlicensed driver loses control of a semi, we might not be so fortunate. This incident should be a wake-up call. It should spark outrage. It should force lawmakers in California and Washington and every other state to ask themselves if they're doing enough to keep dangerous drivers off the roads. Because right now, the answer is clearly no. When a man with 0 credentials can get hired by a trucking company and cause a 7-vehicle crash, this system has failed, period. The question now is what we're going to do about it. Are we going to keep pretending this is a minor issue that can be solved with a few policy tweaks? Or are we going to acknowledge that we have a cancer in our trucking industry that needs to be cut out completely? Are we going to protect American drivers and American families? Or are we going to keep allowing companies to chase the cheapest labor they can find regardless of the consequences? Those are the questions we need to be asking. And we need answers before the next unlicensed driver jackknifes into a school bus that happens to be full of kids. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss an update. Your support lets me keep bringing you more content just like this. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.